ago, we first broached at the workshop the concept of the extension of the supervisor's term from 2 years to 4 years, and then concept 2, the term limit of the supervisor at 3 terms of 12 years. And Attorney Genesi will probably be the star of the show here, because a month ago he dropped a couple of revelations, at least on me, is that the 2 different ways you can go about this. One is local.
Well, I'll explain it, yes. There are 2 different ways. One of them is the town board can pass a resolution placing on the ballot this November a referendum to town residents to extend the supervisor's term to 4 years. That has to be done 150 days prior to the election or earlier. So I believe whenever the election is in November, so it would be sometime in May, maybe the first meeting in May before that. The other means of seeking a change in the term of the supervisor is by home rule message, which is something I think you're all familiar with, where the town board would effectively pass a resolution asking the state legislature to pass the law. That would also go to referendum. However, that could be done on much less notice, number one. Number two, that could be in effect, I guess I skipped one thing, that could be in effect this coming election. If it's done by resolution 150 days out, it would not take effect until the following election. So therefore, if it was done this year by resolution, placed on the ballot, and if it passed, it would not be effective until 2023. If it's done by home rule legislation, the state legislature permits it, it goes on the ballot this year. We don't have to have, there's much less notice, which I won't get into right now, but it's not 150 days out. It would go on the ballot as a referendum, and it would take effect if we wanted to this year. Therefore, the supervisor, if it passed,
Yeah.
right, correct.
And,
Now, I won't get into the term limits right yet.
right, let's break it that one, because concept 2 is the term limit. So let's start with that one. And
Sure.
I can tell you, write it down, cut my finger in blood, have me sign it. I have no interest in this board, and maybe the other 4 feel differently about this, of getting a referendum on the November 21 ballot that whoever wins the election for supervisor would start January 1st, 2022, a 4-year term. I have no appetite for that. I do have an appetite for, on the November 23 election, that winner of the supervisor election would start on January 1st, 2024 as a 4-year term. The referendum for that, I would love to see it on the November 21 ballot. And if the town's people voted in, it would not go into effect until the November of 23 election for the January 24 term.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
That's correct, right.
And
The other one could,
I rest my case.
Yeah, the other one, the home rule could also be done anytime. You could have a special election. I mean,
Right.
that's not bound to the November election. The resolution passed 150 days or more prior to the election is only for the general election.
And Charlie, I got to tell you something. Apparently, when we talked about this on January 14th, people do watch our workshops, because I've seen some comments and some whatever, and I've kind of found them kind of comical that they said, the town board's talking about this, and this is the problem with COVID. The public's not able to come in and talk about this with them. The public should have a say on whether we're going to have the term extended from 2 to 4 years. Did anybody really listen? They would have a say. They would vote in November, right?
There would be a direct vote.
Right.
So it's about, you may get more of a say
We
than
don't have any more input.
Last time we spoke, when you're posing this to the public's credit, it is confusing. Okay, you're talking about a referendum that's going to start 1 year and another year. So I'm glad we're talking about this again tonight to add some clarity to it. I'm definitely a proponent of allowing the citizens of Webster to vote on this. That way, their voices can be heard individually. I have no problem with going from 2 years to 4 years. Never have. I thought there's a number of municipalities in New York State that have done that. But I think, in all fairness, it should be put out to the residents to vote on it.
Well, let's be clear on this. Either way, it goes to a vote.
Yes.
Right.
Either way. The only difference being is, one is a referendum that if it passes,
Right.
it takes immediate,
Yeah.
I don't know, what word am I looking for? Effect. Takes
Yes,
immediate
right.
effect as of the first
It
of the
takes
year.
effect as of the election.
That-
Correct. As of
The other
as
one-
opposed to the future election.
The other
2024.
one, it puts it off for 2 years.
And I think that's.
So what
that's the
what
way to
that
go.
does, by putting it off
Right.
for 2 years, it takes away any of the inference
Of
that there's
self-serving.
anyone on this board
Right.
that is looking to further their election status
Right.
by doing so. But either way, our residents are gonna make that decision. It's gonna be voted on either way. So there's, whatever we decide we wanna do, the residents are gonna have the ultimate say.
Right. I think the right thing to do is to put it out to 2024, in my opinion.
Voted on in November of
Correct.
21.
Right.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts, Bill?
I have no thought one way or the other, it doesn't matter to me, I think a two-year term, the way it is fine. Every 2 years, the public votes. I mean, I don't see a need to have a four-year term, but if it's so desired by the board to put it out there, I'm fine with that.
Well, the beauty of this is that if the board puts it out there and the citizens come back and 90% shut it down, then Bill, your thoughts were representative of the citizens. You were a man of the people.
I don't see either way, which way it matters.
We've
Yeah.
talked about this in private, and I don't believe we've ever talked about it in public, but I think there's been private conversations amongst board members over the years where we talked about the fact that a 2-year term for a supervisor, especially a new supervisor, really doesn't give him a chance or her a chance to really get into the job. 2 years, because you're 1 year learning, and the next year, you're almost, within 6 months of that, you're campaigning.
Right.
So would there be a benefit to the position to have it a 4-year term? I believe it would be a benefit to have the position a 4-year term. But that's not for me to decide. That's for the residents to
Yes.
decide.
Right.
So, we could present it as a referendum at the next election, just as a matter of fact. Is it what the residents think is the correct way to operate or not?
No, I agree.
And I will say, I said we'd catch up on time. I think we still will. On concept 2, because we're not making any decisions tonight. I'm glad we're having another discussion on it, because sooner or later we'll have to decide in May or whatever the thing that you said, Charlie. But it's only February. On the term limits, I took the opportunity when I got here today to go along the back wall with all the nice pictures of all the supervisors that have held the position over this since Webster was formed. And I decided to only go back to 1936, which is 85 years ago, by the way. Do you know that we've had 11 supervisors in the last 85 years? 11. Their average terms were 7.27 years. Robert Whitner, 10 years. Oh, shoot. Sidney Barnum, 8 years. I'm sorry for their relatives. These are back in the 40s. Harold Barnum, 10
Garnham.
years. Now we get modern. Walter Bradley, who the sewage treatment plant is named after,
Yep.
8 years. Ed Seitz, 6 years. William Lochner, 2 years. Irving Kent, 6 years. Adrian Stanton, 6 years. Henry Cuyaba, 2 years. Catherine Thomas, 12 years. Ronald Nesbitt, 14 years. The 12 years that I said might make sense if it's a 4-year term and 3 terms out, certainly over the last 85 years, wouldn't have been problematic. And I've heard some people say that we don't need a term limit because you'll get voted out when it's time to go. So, after looking at the last 85 years of history, I'm less adamant, if you want to call it, about getting a referendum for term limit as I am about the first concept, which is extending it from 2 to 4. And I am biased on this because having sat in this seat for the last 13 months, and I'm ready to go back out and campaign, but man, you know, Art's here, Joe's here, I mean, you're busy in this job. To do it the right way, you are busy. And to have to go out and collect money in campaigns from the citizens every 2 years, actually it's kind of insulting, in my opinion, to have to do that to citizens every 2 years. It makes more sense to me every 4 years. But like I said, that's my opinion. Bill gave his opinion. The citizens would ultimately vote on it, and what do the citizens say? 15,000 come out to vote in a non-presidential year, and I don't know, how does it work on a referendum? Do you gotta win by 5% on a yes versus no? Or is it just
No, it's a referendum.
vote for vote?
Simple vote.
Simple
There's no
vote.
percentage.
Majority.
Just
Okay.
like a majority, right.
But that's all I got to say about the term limit.
Well, the term, Mr. Supervisor, the term limit is not referendum. That's something the town board can do by itself. Just to clarify that.
Great. Well,
I don't personally see any reason for a term limit. I'm not seeing it where it was a problem.
the 85 years I just gave show that it wasn't.
I don't think it's really even necessary. Term limits are decided at the polls.
I agree. But anyway,
Well, then move on.
we've had our second conversation. We caught up a few minutes. It's 6:06.